In 8th grade, at the age of 14, Barry Loukaitis armed himself with a rifle and 2 handguns and entered his algebra class, initiating a horrifying attack. During this rampage, he tragically took the lives of his algebra teacher, Leona Karras, 14-year-old Manuel Vela Jr., and Arnold Fritz, who was also just 14 years old. What could drive a teenager to execute such a gruesome plan against his peers and teacher? Barry's parents were going through a contentious divorce, and even though they resided in the same house, they were far from amicable. Amidst the presence of step-siblings, Barry lived in an emotionally charged atmosphere with 2 angry adults, an environment likely to deeply affect a young boy. Barry frequently endured taunts from his fellow students about his troubled home life, his studious nature, and his penchant for wearing cowboy attire. Over time, something within Barry changed, and he began exhibiting a darker side, often making allusions to death and violence. He immersed himself in literature such as Rage, a novel depicting a high school senior who shot his algebra teacher, a chilling parallel to the crime Barry himself would later commit. Barry also found an affinity for Pearl Jam's music video Jeremy, which drew inspiration from a real-life incident in Richardson, Texas in 1991, where a teenager tragically shot himself in front of his English class. The music video portrays a young boy unloved by his parents, who incessantly quarreled in his presence and who was relentlessly taunted by other students at his school. One of Barry's favorite films happened to be Natural-Born Killers, a movie inspired by the criminal actions of Charles Starkweather. Barry's father, Terry Loukaitis, possessed 3 firearms and provided him with firearm instruction. Terry held concerns about his soon-to-be ex-wife Joanne's mental well-being, prompting him to conceal the guns in the trunk of his car. However, Joanne discovered them and began carrying one of the handguns in her jacket pocket, which greatly alarmed Terry. Suddenly, the other firearms went missing, leading Terry to report the situation to the police out of fear that Joanne may have removed them. Strangely, he never contemplated the possibility of his son's involvement. Terry believed Barry to be the most well-adjusted among his children, but he was mistaken. Unbeknownst to Terry, Barry was subjected to teasing from his peers and had been writing dark stories in his English class. He remained blissfully unaware that, in the week leading up to the murders, his son Barry was ensnared in what psychiatrists described as a psychotic delusion. On the morning of Friday, on February 2nd, when Barry Loukaitis, just 14 years old, embarked on a fateful journey. Armed with his father's rifle and 2 handguns, with quiet determination, he made his way to his algebra classroom, a place that would soon transform into the heart-wrenching epicenter of a terrible tragedy. Inside, the teacher, Leona Karras, a seasoned educator at 49 years of age, stood at the blackboard, unaware of the impending horror that awaited her and her students. Upon entering the room, Barry retrieved the rifle from his concealed arsenal and, without hesitation, fired a single shot. The deafening sound of gunfire shattered the stillness, forever altering the lives of those present. Manuel Vela Jr., a young boy seated in the front row, had his life tragically cut short in an instant. The horrifying event continued as the bullet found another target, striking Arnold Fritz, who was seated just behind Manuel. A sense of terror and chaos unfolded as a stray bullet tore through the right arm of 13-year-old Natalie Hintz, inflicting pain and injury on yet another innocent victim. In the wake of this initial burst of violence, Barry's gaze turned toward Leona, his algebra teacher. Without hesitation, he pulled the trigger once more, and Leona fell to the floor, her life senselessly extinguished. In a macabre and twisted turn of events, Barry adapted a line from the book Rage, twisting it to his grim satisfaction. "This sure beats algebra." With his teacher now lifeless on the floor and his classmates in a state of shock and terror, Barry assumed control of the classroom, taking it hostage. The once ordinary school day had transformed into a nightmare that would haunt the community for years to come, leaving everyone to grapple with the chilling question of what could drive a young teenager to commit such a heinous act. Fortunately, due to the swift and resolute intervention of gym coach Jonathan Lane, Barry was subdued and apprehended. Barry Loukaitis was subsequently convicted of murder and kidnapping, receiving a sentence of 2 life terms plus an additional 205 years, with no possibility of parole. On April 19, 2017, he was resentenced to 189 years in prison.